The Church in the DR Congo, A Personal Perspective, Part 5, Building from Centers of Strength, Kisangani. In this section, I will discuss the general policy of the Church to grow gradually outward from centers of strength, rather than sending missionaries and establishing branches immediately upon request. In earlier dispensations, the work of teaching the gospel expanded slowly from family to family among the nations. Sometimes covenant peoples were exhorted to gather, one of a city and two of a family, to centralize prototypes of the millennial Zion. When Jesus Christ began to teach, he had to confine his 3-year mortal ministry to a single people and a very small part of the earth that would later serve as a strong base of operations for church expansion. Following his last instructions before his ascension, the ancient apostles began to take the gospel from the land of Israel to all nations. During their ministry, key churches from within major cities became apostolic centers of missionary activity as the church reached out to Gentiles in nearby countries. In the restored church, the emphasis on gathering to a center of strength began with the commandment for the members to assemble together at the Ohio and continued as a general policy throughout much of the Utah period. Echoing vivid word pictures from the book of Isaiah, the Doctrine and Covenants describe the kingdom of God as a tent whose expanse increases continually outward from its center place through the establishment of stakes for the curtains or strength of Zion. Now the strength of the church and the needs of the world are such that places for the gathering of Israel are distributed worldwide. Significant hubs of growth within each country provide centers of strength from which missionary activity can radiate to new, nearby areas. In 1993, Elder Dallin H. Oaks explained, quote, "Missionary work must be done so as to establish the Lord's church. For this reason, we must conduct our efforts so as to grow from centers of strength. In this way, the baptism of one person leads on to the perfecting of that saint, to the ordinances that seal a family in the holy temple, and to the redeeming and sealing of dead ancestors and their families. We must conduct our missionary work in that spirit of unity and wholeness. Baptisms are not enough." President Jean-Claude Mabaya, counselor in the DR Congo Kinshasa Mission Presidency, further explains this concept.
Des choses que je peux encore ajouter, c'est sur la progression de l'Église à travers l'Afrique et principalement dans notre région. L'Église de Jésus-Christ des saints des derniers jours a la capacité de s'implanter partout à travers le monde. Mais seulement, elle a une façon de faire. Elle a une façon de s'implanter à travers le monde. Et elle fonctionne selon un modèle préétabli. Ouais. Ce qui veut dire qu'il y a beaucoup, principalement pour notre pays, il y a beaucoup, même pour les pays voisins, quand je voyage, il y a beaucoup de gens qui aiment inviter l'Église à venir s'implanter là où ils sont. Beaucoup. Beaucoup ont été membres de l'Église dans de grandes villes. Par une raison ou une autre, se sont déplacés pour de petites villes dans lesquelles ils vivent. Ils aimeraient que l'Église arrive là-bas. Et ils sont très nombreux. Très nombreux. L'Église progresse selon une façon préétablie par le Seigneur. Ce qui est contraire à la façon que fonctionnent certaines des églises ici au Congo. Pour certaines des églises ici au Congo, il suffit de venir demander la personnalité civile à l'État. On vous accorde une personnalité civile et vous allez vous implanter l'église, même si vous n'avez pas de membres. Mais pour l'église, c'est l'inverse. Il faut qu'il y ait d'abord des membres qui habitent à un certain endroit, qui lisent les Écritures, qui comprennent les choses et qui invite l'Église à aller là-bas. Et même pour que l'Église aille là-bas, il y a des conditions à remplir. Ça, c'est un modèle qu'on ne voit pas ailleurs, mais qui permet à l'Église de progresser d'une façon propre, mais aussi efficace. Lorsqu'on part d'un centre de force vers un endroit, on considère le centre de force comme la mère qui peut apporter l'aide, soutien, formation, ainsi de suite. Mais lorsqu'on tombe du ciel comme ça, sans base, on n'a pas la chance de progresser. C'est la raison pour laquelle l'Église progresse de la bonne manière ici, en prenant la source comme le centre de force. C'est une façon pour moi que j'ai appréciée. Parce que quand je venais d'entrer dans l'église, nous avons reçu un homme qui est venu du Canada, qui était dans une église, qui s'est disputé avec les autres, et il a quitté cette église, il les a promis de ramener une nouvelle église. Et il est venu à Kinshasa chercher une nouvelle église. Malheureusement pour lui, il est tombé sur notre église. C'était en 1990. J'étais déjà membre de moins d'une année. Il était venu pour prendre l'église et rentrer avec à Canada. Mais on lui a dit que ce n'est pas comme ça que l'église progresse. Vous devez être baptisé. Il s'est fait baptiser. Vous devez être ordonné. Il a été ordonné jusqu'à la patrie de Mercedes. Il a passé une année avec nous ici. Et il est rentré avec sa famille à Canada. Mais il n'avait pas comment on appelle ça, la personnalité civile pour ouvrir l'église à Canada. Il est resté. Il a commencé à écrire.
On implante l'église là-bas?
Oui, pour qu'on implante l'église à Canada. Il était seul. Il devait chercher les gens. Il les a cherchés, il les a trouvés. Il était le seul membre avec sa famille. Les autres ne l'étaient pas. Mais heureusement pour lui, lorsqu'on a chassé les Kassaïens de Lubumbashi, il y avait la guerre là-bas, on les a chassés. Beaucoup étaient déjà membres à Lubumbashi. Et lorsqu'ils sont rentrés à Canada, ils ont formé une équipe qui était beaucoup plus grande. Et c'est ainsi que l'Église est allée là-bas.
As of January 2018, the church operated in only 3 major cities within the vast area of the DR Congo covered by the DR Congo Kinshasa mission. These 3 cities were Matadi, toward the lower left, Kinshasa to the right and a little higher than Matadi, and Kisangani toward the upper right of the country. To give you a better idea of travel between these cities, it takes the better part of a day to go from Kinshasa to Matadi by a crowded but fairly decent paved road. On the other hand, Kisangani is 1,643 miles away by car, down difficult, dangerous, and mostly unpaved roads. Another option is to join a crowd of about 200 people on a barge not equipped for passenger travel. At 5 to 10 miles per hour, the trip is advertised as taking 10 days, but when the unexpected happens, it may take 30 days or more, and these figures are going for going downstream, not upstream against the current of the river. Understandably, anyone who has the means goes to Kisangani by air. Given its distance from Kinshasa, Kisangani provides an interesting case study in church development in a remote area of the DR Congo. The region surrounding Kisangani has a rich and complicated history that has been explored and romanticized in films, books, and plays, including Joseph Conrad's Heart of Darkness, Humphrey Bogart and Katharine Hepburn's The African Queen, and A Bend in the River by the late Nobel Prize winner V.S. Naipaul. Mobutu Sese Seko, the ruler of DR Congo from the 1960s through the 1990s, restored the native name of Kisangani to the city as part of his Africanization movement. Before that, it was known as Stanleyville. The name Stanleyville comes from the intrepid explorer and journalist for the New York Herald, Henry Morton Stanley. Stanley is well known for having founded the Christian medical missionary, explorer, and anti-slavery crusader David Livingstone, who had disappeared into the jungle near Lake Tanganyika. Stanley purportedly greeted him with the absurd question, "Dr. Livingstone, I presume?" 1939 film Stanley and Livingstone featured Spencer Tracy as Stanley and Sir Cedric Hardwicke as Livingstone. Stanley was eventually hired by the cruel Belgian king Leopold to establish trade and transportation routes down the Congo River from east to west from Stanleyville, now Kisangani, to Leopoldville, now Kinshasa. Because of Kisangani's location at the confluence of two major rivers, including at the uppermost section of the navigable waters of the Congo River that lead to Kinshasa, it was a natural trading center. Stanley had the influential ivory and slave trader from Zanzibar, Tipu Tip, appointed as governor of the Stanley Falls district. There is nothing left of Stanley's trading post now except for this sign, written in a different language on each side: English, French, Lingala, and Swahili. It is misleading to call Kisangani a city in the traditional sense of the word. Perhaps the best description would be that it is a sprawling village of over 1.5 million people. Kisangani is situated at the border of two spheres of influence: East Africa and the Swahili culture of the Muslim world, and the people of the Congo River and the Kinshasa Lingala culture. A city of transportation and traders, it has in the past always welcomed outsiders: Greek, Portuguese, Indian, Lebanese, and of course Belgian, and some of these communities live on today. The group of English class students shown here reflect the ethnic diversity of Kisangani. Some of the students' families have come from the northernmost equatorial province of Congo. Some resemble the Rwandan and Ugandan people to the east, and others seem to reflect a heritage from North Africa. The large central mosque of Kisangani is located on the main highway in the outer periphery of the city, just a short drive from Stanley's trading post. The growth of the church in Kisangani is a good example of the policy of building from centers of strength described earlier by Elder Oaks and President Mabaya. In 2011, 6 years after the arrival of the first few members in Kisangani, a group was authorized, allowing families to meet on Sundays and take the sacrament together. 2 years later, a group of church leaders and missionaries was sent by the mission to investigate the situation. They found a group of 50 non-members desiring baptism. 31 of them were baptized soon afterward in the Shopo River. Following a visit by the area president and the mission president, authorization was given to create a branch in March 2015. In 2017, a second branch in the suburb of Wagenya was created, and the organization of a third branch in a different part of the city is envisioned in the near future. Here we see members from both branches assembled for a regional state conference broadcast. Parents and children from the Wagenya branch had to walk 3 to 5 miles each way to the meeting. Because the entire city had been without power for 2 months, a gas generator was rented to run the projector. We prayed that there would be enough gas to keep the generator running and that the inevitable fluctuations of the electric current would not burn out the delicate and only projector bulb. These two marvelous young single adults had worked hard to make sure the building was clean and in good order. On Saturday, the day prior to the conference broadcast, we held a training session on leadership principles, including the role of branch councils. After the Sunday meetings, leaders from the two branches met until nearly dark to learn more about the technical and administrative matters, as shown here. The training started with computer basics at the most elementary level, including how to plug together the monitor and the keyboard. Although there were a few members with computer experience, this was completely new to most of them. Dede Matpia, responsible for member support in the Kinshasa Temporal Affairs Organization, went over the practical aspects of computer-based applications for tracking and mapping membership. Often, members had to be located by dead reckoning on satellite maps, since street addresses are not always available. Dede also discussed software for managing donations and expenditures. Branch leaders told us that less than 10% of their households used email, and only a few people in each branch had cameras on their phones so they could send photos of administrative documents to the mission office in Kinshasa. When the electricity came on some weeks later, The internet was generally too slow and unreliable to be unusable. Because the banks in Kisangani did not conform to church requirements, church leaders relied on a complex and error-prone method of payment by phone to send branch donations to the mission office and to reimburse members for personal expenses for the branch. During another visit a few months later, President Kirangozi showed me the solar panels that, after a wait of several months, had finally been installed in one of the Kisangani Makiso branch buildings. The solar panel installation was important to the branch because even when there were no general outages, locally generated power was usually only available during some evenings and Sunday afternoons. As we inspected the installation, we noticed that old and new batteries had been mixed together indiscriminately, and that no voltage regulator had been installed. A few hours later, the voltage from the solar panel suddenly rose from 220 to 270 volts. The circuit breaker on the voltage regulator, which we had just hooked up, failed to trip, and the printer began to exude smoke. None of this gave us much confidence in the current state of the solar panel setup. It is not uncommon for membership in rural branches to include large numbers of extended family. 8 of President Kirangozi's family members were baptized on the same day he was. After the branch meeting, they asked me to take this photo of some of the adult members of the family. Brother Mbula Mukiti Lavi, the Wagenya branch clerk, is second from left. Second from right, President Saidi Asenge Jean-Marie, the first branch president in Wagenya, is shown. He is President Kirangozi's uncle. Third from the right is another uncle, Kakolo Lisasi Hubert, who currently serves as a branch counselor to President Kirangozi. Sister Susie, Bosone Fomboli Suzanne, front and center in this photo, is an enthusiastic primary president and branch chorister. The church was growing rapidly. Baptismal services in Kisangani were held most Saturdays. As Elder Oakes emphasized in the statement quoted earlier, baptizing people is not enough. Branches cannot be established unless they are successful at teaching and ministering to new members, giving them opportunities to serve, and preparing them for the blessings of the temple. After one baptismal service, we were glad to see a list of assignments for visits to families, neatly handwritten and tucked in the door of the church for all to read. Families who needed special attention were given priority. At the time of this photo, each of these young single adults, with the exception of the young man in orange, were making final preparations to submit their final mission applications, thanks in great measure to the teaching and friendship of the Webbs. From looking at their neat appearance and confident faces, you would never know that most of them faced daily struggles for food, clothing, and basic shelter, not to mention daunting prospects for providing for a family after their return from their missions. Their return will bring strength and maturity to the branch, inaugurating a significant new phase of growth as they marry and raise their children in the church. Elder Stan and Sister Melinda Webb, who served as Member Leader Support, or MLS couple, were as tremendous support for the branch, for the missionaries, and in building friends for the church in Kisangani. Their hardiness and cheerfulness in the face of unreliable electricity, sporadic water, and slow, intermittent, or non-existent internet access was exemplary. They finished their mission in February 2018. As of November 2018, a search is still underway for their long-term replacement couple. The Webbs are a hard act to follow. Before their mission, Elder Webb had been a professor of English and French at Bainbridge State College in Georgia for 32 years. Sister Webb was a student of Russian when the two of them met in the language lab at the University of Utah. Both were energetic, entertaining teachers of English, whose love for the students and the subject made their classes popular, enjoyable, and inspiring. Here's the English class version of What a Wonderful World It Would Be.
Don't know much about his story. Don't know much about apology. Don't know much about science school. Don't know much about a French tattoo. But I do know that I love you. Love me too.
On one occasion, they proposed that I introduce a lesson on imperatives by telling the students a little about my works on robots and artificial intelligence. This was to be followed by a game where the students would practice using the command form of English verbs by telling someone to do something and the person then pantomiming the thing he was told to do. Before the game began, I asked how many people had heard the word robot, and one or two raised their hands. After showing a photo, I asked whether they thought a robot was a man or a machine. Most eventually decided it was a machine. So far, so good. The concept of artificial intelligence was tough to explain, since words like intelligence and knowledge and even savoir-faire were not really part of their vocabulary in English or French. Eventually, I decided to focus on the distinction between natural and artificial. I asked the class about the word natural, and they said it was whatever was created by God. Then I told them that artificial was whatever was created by people. We talked about some differences between robots and people. Physical differences, such as the fact that your skin repairs itself when it is cut, whereas today's robots do not heal on their own. We also talked about mental differences, such as the fact that people have the power to choose right and wrong for themselves, whereas robots can only do what they have been designed to do. I told them that God was happy when we used our natural intelligence to create useful machines and technologies to help people and do good things. I bore my testimony and encouraged them to use the power of choice that God had given them to make good choices and to do good. Parents in the DR Congo make great sacrifices to earn enough money to keep their children in school. Moreover, historically, the education of boys has been prioritized over that of girls. On the way from our apartment to the mission office was a wall painting with the plaintive caption, "Papa, Mama, make me an educated girl." Getting all the kids to school is not an easy thing for most parents. One day in the village of Kisangani, watching some of the children play who were not in school, I asked my traveling companion, Brother Daniel Kola, a school teacher by profession, what percentage of the children in the villages attended school. He said it was about 60%. The big problem is the relatively high school fees, even for the public schools. In his home community of Israel, which was much closer to Kinshasa than Kisangani was, Brother Kola said the percentage was somewhat higher than that at the beginning of the year. However, by the end of the year it also dwindled to about 60% because parents couldn't find the way to continue. He further explained that when children eat only one meal a day, in the evening, the children are further handicapped by fatigue and have problems staying awake and concentrating in school. Some children have days where their family does not eat at all. Some lucky Congolese parents are able to enroll their children in private schools, like these beautiful, fortunate children in their colorful white and yellow uniforms. This group of school children was named Les Oiseaux, the birds. The little girl in front and center is a natural-born leader if there ever was one. We were delighted when they performed their school song for us.
Nous sommes oiseaux, nous sommes oiseaux, nous sommes méchants, nous sommes méchants, les cheveux sautent, oh les cheveux sautent, oh les cheveux sautent, oh les poissons nagent, les poissons nagent, oh les serpents nagent, les serpents nagent, les oiseaux volent, les oiseaux volent, oh les oiseaux volent, les oiseaux volent, oh les oiseaux volent, les oiseaux volent.
If you were watching closely, you couldn't help but see Sister Romney, whose family does a lot of singing and dancing, join in the fun on the left. The darker colored school uniforms of the older youth were usually clean and neatly pressed. The girls wore skirts, not pants. In Kisangani, we accompanied the Webbs to a school for the poor, where they taught additional English classes once a week. The decrepit sign in front of the school read, quote, "The Revolution of Modernity, DR Congo, a country that is emerging. Vision of the head of state, Joseph Kabila Kabange." The exuberance of the children could be seen and heard as we passed their classrooms. After all, 4 Americans walking together were an unusual sight. There were also a few shy souls, like the boy in the doorway shown here. The children in this school came from homes where the family could not afford even to send their children to public schools. Public schools are supposed to be free, but usually charge at least $10 per semester per child to start classes. Plus, later on in the year, an additional $20 is required for the Minerva, the fee that enables a student to take the qualifying tests. Parents failing to pay the Minerva are required to start their child over again at the beginning of the same grade the following year. To a family with many school-aged children where the household income is less than $2 a day, $20 per child is a fortune that must often be begged or borrowed from relatives or friends. The school children were unspoiled. Their purity shows on their faces. Just look at these sweet girls. Angelic. Here's another class practicing their numbers in English.
9, 10.
1, 2, 3.
1, 2, 3.
4, 5, 6.
4, 5, 6.
7, 8, 9.
7, 8, 9.
10.
10.
9. 8. 7. 6.
6.
5. 4. 3. 2. 1. Okay. So, right shot.
And finally, here is a rendition of Row, Row, Row Your Boat by a third class. For some of these older children, life was not a dream. As we were teaching, a gunshot rang out down the street and all the children rushed to the back of the classroom to look out and see what had happened. Our next stop with the Webbs that day was the Centre Bartimée, a school for the blind and vision impaired that shares a campus with a public school. The school sits at the end of a long courtyard surrounded by quiet buildings. We were met there by Jean-Pierre Goibaka, a kind and faithful member of the Kisangani Makiso branch of the church, who is the director of government efforts for disabled students in the two provinces. Unfortunately, apart from Brother Jean-Pierre's own dedicated advocacy and training efforts, the government gives no financial support to provide services or stipends to the handicapped, young or old. In large cities, blind and maimed people beg in the street for a scanty living. The blind are sometimes led around by a child from car to car at backed-up intersections. Brother Jean-Pierre had pasted some photos into blank pages of a well-used copy of a Duty to God book. This one shows 4 of the blind students he taught when he began his government work at the institute in Kinshasa. He was rightfully proud of the fact that one of the blind students had become a therapist and another a teacher. Jean-Pierre had received special training at the University of Tunisia for teaching Braille, a rare skill in the DR Congo. We met the superintendent and the director of the school for the blind. The director was a local pastor who gave us some background on the school, the only blind school in the province still in operation. Some years ago, there were 3 facilities in Kisangani: the Centre Bartimée, a school established by a Catholic order of Sacré-Cœur, Sacred Heart, and a school that was run by a Dutch religious group. But the priest in charge of the Catholic school died, and the leader of the Dutch religious group left the DR Congo. One of these latter schools still limps along the best it can to serve the needs of deaf children. The school for the blind currently serves 18 children. Some are blind congenitally or because of diseases passed on to them at birth. Some are blinded through diseases such as conjunctivitis or glaucoma. Adult volunteers go out and search for children in need as far as 60 kilometers away. We could not help but note the bullet holes along the wall, souvenirs from the most recent Congo War. A Christmas decoration hung from one of the holes. As soon as blind students have sufficiently mastered basic literacy, they are mainstreamed in classrooms with other students. We were told that this class, containing 2 blind students, was engaged in translating a passage from Cicero's second oration against Catiline from Latin into French. Standing at left in the doorway is the teacher. Imagine one teacher teaching basic literacy to a class of 18 students who cannot see. And when the next state exam is held, this one teacher will be the reader, impossibly, for 3 students at a time. Annie, the student in the wheelchair who has multiple handicaps, was transferred to the school when she became blind. She loves to sing and play games. On a later visit, we returned and played bingo with the class. One of the school's biggest needs is materials. On the table sits an old cast-iron American Braille typewriter that no longer works, and an old German equivalent that has replaced it. Such a machine in used condition can be had in the United States for $2,000, an impossible sum in the Congo. In gratitude for our visit, the students sang a touching and beautiful call and response welcome song from the students. Salut les missionaires. Greetings to the missionaries.
Au milieu de vos enfants d'école d'Isabelle, au milieu de vos enfants d'école d'Isabelle, la joyeuse visite des messieurs missionnaires, la joyeuse visite des messieurs missionnaires, à notre école des aveugles de Kisangani, à notre école des aveugles de Kisangani, à notre école des aveugles de Kisangani, à notre école des aveugles de Kisangani. Vivez, vivez, messieurs missionnaires, vivez, vivez, messieurs missionnaires. La, soyez les bienvenus. La, soyez les bienvenus.
As Kathleen and I were packing for the move of the mission office, we found 5 of the 6 large volumes of an unused Braille copy of the Book of Mormon. The Webb suggested that the book be donated to the school. Stephen, one of the blind students, read us a letter of gratitude written in Braille that a description of the Book of Mormon taken from the title page. I thought of Nephi's application of the prophecy of Isaiah 29:18 to our day, quote, "And in that day shall the deaf hear the words of the book, and the eyes of the blind shall see out of obscurity and out of darkness." In the next part of the presentation, the theme of building from centers of strength will be concluded. Among other things, I will discuss the creation of a second branch in Kisangani, near the traditional home of the Wagenia fishermen.